podcast where we're going through the journey of change. Today I have with me Joe Pellegrino, and today we are talking about the comfort zone. A lot of times people strive to be comfortable, but today we're going to talk about some of the problems of that. So, Joe, what is the comfort zone?
Well, I think it's pretty clear just from the name. The comfort zone is someplace that we settle into, we feel comfortable with, and as long as we stay in that area, we're going to feel pressured and anxious or stressed to actually get out of it, but we don't even realize it. But really, the reality is the comfort zone is a place that we settle into. Doesn't really mean we're comfortable there per se. Although it seems comfortable, we really aren't comfortable because we're not being challenged to do anything else.
Yeah, I think the comfort zone, although it could be detrimental for us and to us, it's something that we're numb to it, right? We're there because we're comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, think about this. If that's truly the definition of a comfort zone, then what's so bad about it? What's so bad? Comfort implies that we're comfortable there. It's a good thing. I want to sit in my easy chair. I want to be comfortable. But this basically says staying here will hurt you. And why? Why would you think it would hurt you?
I think staying there will kill you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So here's why. So I think when we're comfortable, all right. So you can stay there, right? That's an option. You can stay there. You can be comfortable. We're not going to see any growth, any change. So what's being killed here is any potential. All our potential is dead on sight. When we're comfortable, we're not pressing the limits, right? So the goal is we want to press the limits of this comfort zone. We want to stretch ourselves. This is how we grow. And I think first, right? So we know what it is, where it is. How do we? What's stopping us from getting out of that, right? What's holding us back?
Well, I think the reality is the big word for us is fear. We are fearful of the change. We are fearful of stepping out of the comfort zone. I'll give you a story. When I was in high school, I was a nobody. And I did not like being a nobody. I did not like, being the pimple-faced kid and made fun of and all that. And I knew that inside me I had so much more. So when I went to college, I realized something. I realized that nobody knew who I was there. And I could reinvent myself. I can recreate myself.
Okay.
And that's exactly what happened. Now, the truth of the matter is I stepped out of my comfort zone, but I stepped into a different type of zone, an arrogant zone. If I can say a jerk zone.
Okay.
Because I went completely opposite of where I was before. I was trying to be somebody I was not in high school. Then I went to college and I completely flipped and I tried to be somebody I really wasn't. And it wasn't until the time when I recognized that I was not either of those people. I was in the middle. But that comfort zone breaking out is something where we can actually break out of our comfort zone into a worse zone. So we have to be very careful. But fear, I believe, will break down into three areas: a fear of change, the fear of failure, and the fear of the unknown. So those are the three areas that I'm thinking about.
Right. So you overcompensated, right? Like you went from one area to an area you didn't know where you were going. It wound up being a negative thing or overcompensated. Right. So we have to have some kind of goal in mind, right? So we got to identify these areas of life that, first of all, we want to change, right? Because we're in these areas we're comfortable in not changing. Where do we want to get out of this, right? What area of our life do we need to stretch ourselves, press ourselves, and stress ourselves a little bit to break out, to force this growth?
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality is this. We need to first understand who we are. Identity is a very important piece of breaking out of the comfort zone, because so many times we've been told we're somebody that we are not, and we settle into that identity, which stops us from actually being all that we can be. So we settle into the identity comfort zone, if you will. Yeah. And that identity, if it's not the right identity, we can never, ever become who we're supposed to become. And we'll settle into, if I can say it this way, the mindset of failure. We just sit back and we just I can't get out of this. But the reality is, not only can you get out of it, you must get out of it.
Yeah. So that was true for me. My comfort zone of not knowing who I was, I was very much I'm gonna fly under the radar type of guy because I didn't really adhere to any type of identity. So it was like I'm gonna be nobody, right? So I'm under the radar. That was my comfort zone. That's where I didn't want the attention on me because I didn't really know what was coming out. You know what I mean? So I think that you're right where we have to start. We have to have a good starting point, right, of where we do come out of that, so that we don't see any type of arrogant overcompensation, being somebody really we don't want to be.
Right.
So we have this starting point, right, of really we're kind of going backwards. Who are we? That'll give us a trajectory of where do we want to
Right.
go? Where can we see this change?
Yeah, I mean, again, coming back to why is staying inside a comfort zone bad for us, it really does stop us from growing. And if we're not growing, then we are infantile. Infantile in our walk, and infantile in our purpose, infantile in our relationships and everything, because we are staying in a place where we are not meant to be. We were meant to get up, stretch our muscles, walk, do what needs to do, but we need to walk, forward and not stay in a status quo. That's the danger of a comfort zone. It's really the difference between sitting in an easy chair, which is it's comfortable, but it's only for a time.
Right.
Then we have to get out of that and go back to work and do what we have to do. The reality of the bad thing about a comfort zone is we sit in that chair and we stay there. And what happens if you stay in that chair? You get fat, you get lazy,
That's right.
you get wasted. And I mean, not wasted in the way the world would say, but wasted in terms of the talent and the gifts that you've been given that you're not exercising.
Right. We're wasting away.
You're wasting away.
So how do we do it?
Well, I mean, I think the reality is you need to understand, again, the three areas of fear that I mentioned, the fear of change, the fear of failure, and the fear of the unknown. You need to really look at them and say, okay, why am I settled into this position of a comfort zone? And I think the reality is this. Number one is the fear of change. Well, if I get out of this comfort zone, I'm going to be going into territory. I'm afraid. What could happen? I could fail. I had told my kids as they were growing up that whenever you have a decision to make, and it's a big decision, ask yourself this question: if I do this, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Okay? If you can live with that answer, and you really feel that this is something you should do, then go for it. However, if you can't live with that answer, back away from it. And I think that's what we do is with the fear of change, we don't ask ourselves that question. We don't say, well, if I do this, what's the worst thing that's going to happen?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think a lot of times that you're right. We don't actually ask ourselves that and take the time to think about that. If we did, I think the default fear of change there is, what are people going to say?
Yeah.
What are people going to think about me?
Yeah.
What is this going to make me look
Yep.
like?
Yep.
So if you actually look at that, what's the worst that can happen? Nothing, right?
Yeah.
What's the embarrassment? Maybe you're probably something you're making up anyway. Go ahead. Yeah.
So some of the things you would say to yourself in the fear of change is, this task is too big for me. Why me? I can do this. I can't do this alone. I don't know where to start, so I won't do it. All are stopping points. It stops you from growing. And then we get into the second type of fear, and that's the fear of failure. And it's to your point where you said, what are people going to think about me? Well, the fear of failure is all about what people think about you. That's what you're dwelling on.
Yeah.
Because failure can only be recognized by other people looking at you.
That's true.
Okay. And the reality is, wait a minute, what are they going to say about me if I do this? Here's the question. What are they going to say about you if you don't do it? If you don't do it, then you're going to be that guy sitting back, never achieving, never doing. And that comes with a brand as well. So wouldn't you rather be the person who steps out in faith and says, I am going to break out of this comfort zone. I am not going to fear the failure, and I am going to walk in the right direction and test this out. John Maxwell wrote a book called The Fear of Failure. And I lost my company in the year 2000, and it was devastating. We lost everything except our home. I mean, every single penny. Plus, I got stuck with $200,000 of debt. That fear of failure was tremendous because I failed. But I recognized that even though I failed, I was not a failure.
Right.
If I didn't learn from that, if I didn't get out of that failure comfort zone, that would have been a tragedy. But I did learn, and I did grow, and it moved me in the right direction, and it's made me where I am today. It's brought me where I am today. So the fear of failure is a huge one. I'm sure you've experienced a fear of failure yourself.
Yeah. I think too. People respect the effort, right? So what you're talking about. What's that brand if you don't do that thing, right? I think that isn't something we even need to worry about. What will people think if we fail, right? People, maybe this is just me. I look at things and people and situations in a way where it's like, man, like props to you, man. Like, I respect you for trying whatever that was. Like, I like to see people fail, not in the sense of falling on their face, but just the fact that the effort was there, the process is there, because that's the, see, to me, that's like the heart of this is the process of it, right? Because a lot of times the end point isn't necessarily the finish line, right? So this journey along the way, this process along the way, I learned so much more than the place it got me to.
I think you had touched on it when you said you respect people that try, and if they fail, you watch how they respond to that, and they get up and they go again.
Yes.
But there are a lot of people who want to see you fail and hold you down, because if they hold you back from achieving your goals, they can justify their own comfort zone.
Yeah.
That's a bad place to be.
I've heard that a lot of times it's the people closest to you and that have known you the longest that have the hardest time seeing you with any type of success, because it shines the fact that you guys came from the same place.
Right, exactly. And let's dovetail then. Let's go into the third fear, which is the fear of the unknown. This is where, well, if I do get out of this easy chair, where am I going? It could be dark in there. I might not be able to see. I'm afraid to go through that door. It's the fear of the unknown. So you've got change, you've got failure, and then the unknown. And that really becomes a problem, because any one of these three will stop you from achieving what you were supposed to achieve. And I truly believe every single person has been born with purpose. I truly believe that. I believe it's been gifted to them by their creator, and their goal in life is to identify what that purpose is and not only find it, but also put it into action. This comfort zone stops that every time.
Have you ever heard of, we're talking about fear of failure. I want to touch back on that for just a second. The equally and dangerous fear of success.
Absolutely.
I found that men are oftentimes equally afraid of failure than they are to the success of the same thing.
I will tell you that I have a young girl that I know who, every time she gets past that wall and she's on her way to success, she sabotages it. And she knows it. She's been called on it. But that's exactly what she does. She sabotages her success. Why? I believe it's because of these fears.
Yeah.
And if you don't venture out into uncharted waters, you'll never know whether you can handle them or not. Again, ask yourself the question: if I do this, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? If you can answer that with an answer that you can live with, go for it.
I can relate to the self-sabotaging thing, right? Like, I've been at that point in my life where seemingly things are going good, and it seems like then I get in my own way. That's like a baffling thing to me. It really is, because I'm my own worst enemy when it comes to these things.
Well, I believe that every challenge that we have is rooted in a core. So that core comes from the past, how we grew up. What I do, I work with men, so I always go back to, well, what was their life like when they grew up? What was their father like? Was he in their life? How did that impact them? What kind of inner circle did they have? What kind of friends did they surround themselves with? Were they people who cheered them on, or people who pulled them back down into the bucket, so to speak? That's, everything that we are really comes from the past. We are really the root. We are the summation of our decisions that we've made. And if you start tracing them back, you're going to find a pattern, and you're going to realize that's why I am the way I am. Have you ever stopped and thought, why do I do this?
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
though I don't, if you've ever read the Bible, in Romans chapter 7, it talks about the Apostle Paul, and he says, I know the good I should do, but it's the evil that I do that I don't want to do.
Right.
And I think that's very real, no matter what you believe. We are like that as creatures.
Yes.
We recognize the problem many times, but we still go forward, even though we know what it's going to result in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's got to be one of the most relatable things, right? It's like, I know the things of my heart, I want to do good, but man, do I keep messing this up.
There's a few aspects of change that we want to talk about. Is when you're looking at a change, you need to think about a few things. For example, number one, if you really want to change, you need to trust yourself. So that self-sabotaging idea, that's not going to work.
That's what I wanted to touch on there. So we're going back to, I think, what you were just saying before, and how the things in our past and the people around us have shaped us and will shape us. I think that comes down to us finding our identity, right? That's a huge piece of that. For me, that came through, my walk with recovery, right? That forced me to look at myself, look at my past, and kind of sort through that stuff. How do people approach that haven't been faced with? So I was faced with an ultimatum, right?
Yeah.
I was given this solution to my problem of a recovery plan, the 12 steps of recovery, and it was do this or go to jail or be dead.
Right.
That was my ultimatum there. How do people find their way into this growth that their walk is different?
See, I firmly believe it's all about relationships.
Okay.
I believe that if you look at the 5 core people that you surround yourself with, you will determine your success or failure going forward.
Okay.
Now, if you've ever heard of the crabs in a bucket idea, so you've got 10 crabs in a bucket. Inevitably, one crab always tries to escape. The other crabs pull him back down.
Yeah.
Why? Well, in real life, when we look at that, people, again, don't want to see you succeed because it's going to make them be people of action. They don't want to do that. They like the easy chair. They want to sit in that easy chair, and they're going to be comfortable there. But if we are going to be able to get to where we need to go, we need to identify those people who we want to surround ourselves with, who will address a lot of areas that we may be weak in, that they can feed into us, and we to them. Remember, it works. A relationship works both ways in order for it to be healthy.
True.
So that inner circle of people around you, I promise you, that if you hear one thing today, it's all about that inner circle. And then the second thing I would say is it's also all about attitude, because attitude is the only thing we can control in our lives. Our response to any and all situations is going to determine our success or our failure. How we perceive, if we constantly fall into that identity of, oh, woe is me, everything always happens to me.
Right.
Well, guess what? It will always happen to you.
Yep.
You have to make a determination that I'm going to surround myself with the right people and I'm going to have the right attitude. And then, and only then, will you be able to make a change in your comfort zone and stepping out.
No, I like that. And I think as a society, in general, people are crabs, right? Like this numb, entertained society is a huge comfort zone.
Yeah.
You want to talk about a pandemic. We have a pandemic of entertained, content people. It's dangerous.
Absolutely.
It's dangerous for change. You talk about that attitude, which brings us into the effort, right? So we have this goal in mind. We need to have a goal in mind in order to direct this change. And then we just have to put the effort in.
That's right.
Right? There has to be a starting point.
Well, think about this. If I have 3 PhDs, an MBA, all that, but I never put it into action, have I really learned anything? That's the question. So it's the same thing here. If we do not put into action what we know to be true about getting us out of our comfort zone, we will be stuck in it forever. It's all about action, man.
Yeah. Applied knowledge.
Applied knowledge.
Applied knowledge is wisdom, right?
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
It also makes me think of, I had someone in my life tell me that we cannot think our way into better actions, but we have to act our way into better thinking. And that starts with the effort. Just start, right? We just have to take these small steps, right? You got the cliche of you eat an elephant one bite at a time.
Right.
The journey of 1,000 miles starts with a step.
Yep.
But it's true, right? These cliches are cliches for a reason. They're true, and it begins with that effort. We just have to put one foot in front of the other.
Yep.
And this process, I think, will lay itself down for us. This path will form itself if we just add our effort and will into it.
Yeah, and I think you're going to have to experiment with different things. Don't quit the first time if it's not working. Look for different scenarios that you can pop out of your comfort zone. But without a doubt, the first one is you really want to address your attitude, saying, I can do this. I can do this. I will do this. The second one is surround yourself with the right people. And then whatever else you want to figure out, you just walk through it. And if you screw up, figure something else out, because I cannot stay in that comfort zone.
Right, right. That trial, that moment of pain even, is it going to make you better or is it going to make you bitter? And that, I'm telling you, that journey is so key, that what happens along the way, which if you're fortunate will include failure. That's what builds the perseverance. That's what builds the character. If you're fortunate, it won't go that well for you, right?
So I want you to think about this. How many people have done great things by doing it mediocre?
Doesn't happen.
Mediocrity is a killer.
Yes.
Okay, it will destroy you. And if you look at the great men and women that have walked through history, they failed. They made mistakes, but they adjusted. And that's where that fear comes in, where, how can I overcome this? How can I do this? You can, you will, but you need to take that first step, because consider what's beyond your comfort zone. You have to consider that if I break out of this, in my example, when I was in college, and I also learned another thing about myself. I was a leader, and I took charge of the house that we lived in, and the guys were under me. People would come to me, and I started realizing I was a leader. And what I did was I would always settle in the background, but now I'm recognizing I'm a leader, and I'm going to break out of that comfort zone of sitting in the back row and saying, no, I'm called to lead. And now, 40 years later, that's all I do.
Right.
And I recognize that. So breaking out of that comfort zone has not only changed my life, but Kevin, I can tell you this, it's changed tens of thousands of lives around the world because of what I've run, the businesses and ministries that I've run. It's nothing to do with me. I recognize that. It's all about recognizing what's in me and allowing it to come out.
Yeah. And that process, right, that journey we keep bringing up, it is uncomfortable, right? That's why we're getting out of the comfort zone, and it's uncomfortable, and we try these new methods. We face these fears. At a certain point, we become, or we hope to become, comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? So we repeat this process in different parts of our lives to grow in different aspects of our lives.
I think, really, as we come to an end of this, I think it's important to understand that failure is a mentor. It's a teacher. It's something there to teach us. It's not the way to do it, okay? But what did you learn when you were going through it? What needed to change? That is a great, great asset when we can look through those eyes and recognize, oh my goodness, if I did it this way, I think it would have worked. Instead of saying, it didn't work, done, I'm finished. No, I can make little tweaks and changes to get to where I need to go. And I can rely on the people that are surrounding me to bounce ideas off of and say, what do you think? Because remember something, guys. Other people have gone through the challenges you're going through. And why should you have to experience the failure when somebody can point you and say, hey, don't go down that road. There's a bunch of potholes down there.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely, man. So we need to know ourselves. We know these fears, so we got to face these fears. Get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Start the journey. Get uncomfortable with the comfortable. Get comfortable with the uncomfortable. And just walk step by step. We got to remember that life begins at the end of the comfort zone. We're continue to live in our comfort zone, and once we realize that life doesn't even start till we press that boundary or get out of it, we're going to stay there.
That's right.
We're going to stay there. So we need to have a plan. This is the In the Midst of Growth podcast. Thanks for listening.